Welcome to AOL. Welcome to AOL Underground.
Would you please state your handle and the years you were active on AOL?
Squirrel, active from probably about 97 till 03. Not the same Squirrel as AOL. Unintentionally, wasn't even thinking about that. Found out a couple years later that there was another one.
Nice. So when did you first use a computer?
Early 90s. Started off with just an MS-DOS machine. Later on, parents upgraded to a Windows 3.1, but very limited in terms of what we were able to do with that.
Nice. Can you tell me about the first time you got in the internet?
First time, probably, it was over at a buddy's house. They had a computer room that walked in, and his dad was on AOL, and just all the stuff moving around was completely different than just the gaming that we would do. Remember, his dad opened up a chat room and probably just a general lobby room or something like that. And he's like, yeah, these people are from all over the country. You could be talking to anybody in the country or possibly the world, and just completely blew my mind. And so a few times after that, going over to his house was just, hey, can we get on that internet, that AOL, and what's the weather like over in Boston? But wasn't our computer though, so it was very limited.
Nice. And so then when did you get your own computer to be able to get an AOL, or were you always at your friends?
No, it was a few years later after that. Once it was after we upgraded a computer that had Windows 95 on it that finally talked my parents, or I think it was actually more so my mom's work friends saying, hey, there's this internet thing that got her to do it, because at that point I was only like 11 or 12 years old, so I don't think that she'd take too much into what I'm saying to do something like that. But like 97, I think it was AOL 3.0. I'd used 2.5, and just once we got into the deeper parts of AOL, I'd bounce back to 2.5, 3.0, trying to do different stuff, but was primarily the start at 3.0.
Tell me about the deeper parts of AOL.
Oh, I mean, that happened pretty quick. It's funny how so many people on the podcast so far have had a very similar story as mine. Within what seemed like a few days, maybe a few weeks, started seeing scrollers and stuff in the chat rooms that to a 11, 12-year-old looked cool as hell, and was immediate. How do I get to do that? How can I find out how to do that? And was in all the wheres and VB proggy rooms, and went down a deep hole a lot quicker. Granted, at that point, it was still a lot more difficult to find that stuff because it was all basically word of mouth. They didn't have Lens Hell and Free Progs and the different websites that you could download stuff. It was pretty much all direct. And I mean, that got me into programming really quickly too, because again, it was all limited as to what you were going to be able to get from somebody else. Got served Visual Basic, I think it was 3.0 initially, and didn't know what the hell to do with any of it. Luckily, it was such a cool group of people too that was very open. I had no prior experience with any of that, and people were very much so for sharing. Now, there was certainly the occasional jackass that would share something that would try and screw your computer up or something like that, or steal a password. But once you got past the initial newbiness, that settled down a little bit.
Yeah, and you get a little bit smarter about which files to open.
Oh, absolutely. No .src files, no .exe files, unless you are looking a little bit more in depth to it. Don't just trust everything. Again, a preteen, they're stupid. They trust way more than they really should.
What proggies do you remember?
I downloaded a lot of stuff. The big all-in-one ones are the ones that kind of stand out the most. Like, and these were all guys that I talked with a lot and was in some of the groups with them, like Gothic Nightmares, which somebody else mentioned that. I remember, and I might be remembering it wrong, but one of the first base files that I got that was more limited, it wasn't like the DOS 32, or it was masta.base. And that I've looked for it. I have not found that anywhere on the GitHub or anywhere else on the internet, but I know that was one that had so much built into it too, just like those other ones, but I think it was just a little bit more private than Swarm by like the Transcend crew, Rampage Tools, Celtic Tools. Yeah, I was close with a lot of those guys, and it's crazy to see how much bigger a lot of this was, especially when I first went back through AOL files and saw that member list. And there were a lot more people on there than I remembered. Pepsi Cracker, I think it was probably the first cracker I think that I used. But yeah, it was just so much stuff didn't work that you download something and it was already dead by the time you downloading it. And so it was just okay, well, delete that. And that's where it got a lot better once you had your little group of people, because you'd get that stuff when it was still fresh and wasn't broken yet. AOL hadn't fixed it. Almost like 0 days made it a lot more fun because you weren't trial and erroring stuff that was not going to work.
Yeah, it was always disappointing to find an app that had a really cool interface and find out it was for like AOL 2.5 or something. You're just like, God damn it.
Yeah, it's like I think I would have remembered this name if it had been around for 3 years already, but no, it's not. I just hadn't seen it or forgot about it or something.
It sounds like you were making your own programs then.
I was kind of mostly just for myself. I did add, some help into a few different things with buddies, but I never really released anything, with the exception out to some of that close knit group of friends, just because I'm a bit of I don't want to say perfectionist, but again, it was one of those things when AOL would fix something and it broke. Well, I didn't want to put anything out because that function doesn't work anymore. So it was constantly adding, dropping, adding, dropping. Would have been a lot easier in today's age with just how kind of updatable things are. But back then it was, once you put it out there, that version was out there. And I never wanted to have the situation where somebody's saying, oh, this thing's broke, this doesn't work. So I just kind of kept it for myself and the close friends. The one kind of all-in-one that I worked on the most, I remember it was called Nest, like Squirrel's Nest. Same thing. All of this stuff kind of reinvigorated the memory. I tried looking for that and I couldn't find it anywhere, which makes sense because I never really put it out onto any of the websites or any public groups. So no CDRs or old discs or anything like that I still have laying around that I can try and find. I tossed about 2 years ago. I moved and I tossed all the CDRs that I still had just because I haven't touched them in years, and why just move them from one place to another to sit there and collect even more dust. So I'm kicking myself now though.
Yeah, I have the same feeling. I had some sweet games in my CDR collection.
Yeah, yeah. And like my current desktop, I just rebuilt it, or built a new one last year, and doesn't even have a CD drive in it. It's like I could put one in there. I've got one sitting in my basement, but why even bother? Because the last desktop that I built, I can't remember the last time I even used it. So
Okay, so sounds like you dabbled in some programming. And did you get involved with anything else in the scene?
yeah, when some of that stuff started dying, then it was getting deeper into some of the different exploits, and this is probably getting closer to like maybe AOL 6, AOL 5.0, AOL 6.0, that we were doing quite a bit more. Me and this one buddy who he ended up, actually, I think he ended up running, once it switched into FDO files. Probably the two biggest things was we somehow, I don't remember how we found it, but we got a AOL customer service number that we could actually listen in on the calls. They couldn't hear us, and I'm assuming it was just this call may be recorded for quality control purposes type of thing, but we got plenty of people's passwords and all sorts of stuff off of that. And you just get to listen to how kind of dumb people are, which, I mean, I've listened on customer service calls before too. Some of the simplest things with, restart your computer, or no, don't use password as a password. But yeah, we got nothing really crazy because it was mostly just, personal accounts, people's moms calling in and things like that. And then once my family switched over to cable internet, we kind of got rid of AOL regular, but AOL had this program called AOL Net Connect, which still let you go in and connect up to their servers. Again, don't remember exactly how it worked, but there was no rate limit on the cracking for it. And we somehow found a way to bypass secure ID. So me and a couple buddies, we got a good amount of internal accounts and 3 characters. My only 2-character account I ever got was through that, which that's my longest name or account with Squirrel, and it was X1 Squirrel, just because the 2 char was was X1, and I thought it was cool. That client also was nice because it allowed us, I could just minimize that even when we weren't on cable. When I was downloading at the beginning of the torrenting stage and stuff, you had to leave something open all night long so my parents wouldn't know that the AOL client was open.
Wait, all you had to do was minimize it and they didn't know it was open?
Well, that and I mean, I made a kind of a hide screen program too, but it was just a pop up with a gray box, if I remember correctly. That's all this AOL Net Connect was. I could just minimize it, or I think I might have again built an app that just hid the whole client too. But there'd be no welcome, you've got mail, any of that kind of stuff that was going to come out of the speakers either.
Interesting. That's really cool. When you say you could listen to customer calls, did you call something or you found like recordings?
Yeah, it must have been some AOL internal number that we could call in and go through a series of menus to then, yeah, we were just overhearing the calls as they were live. And again, I'm assuming it was for, a manager to listen in or quality control on everything. But in the moment, we were stealing passwords, and which that was kind of fun too, because when they were on the phone with them, they'd be like, "Oh, well, I just got kicked off," and it's like, "Yeah, because we just logged into your account and you got booted off of it." So, but yeah, I don't know how we found it. If we were like trying a bunch of different options on these internal phone numbers, or if we socialed into getting that phone number from somebody else. I can't remember how we found it, but yeah, it was all like in the moment and live, not recordings yet. I'm assuming they probably made recordings of it too. But we would conference, me and this other guy, we would conference each other in and then call the number so that we were both listening in at the same time.
What else did you get into?
Wares was also definitely a big thing with all that. I didn't know IRC yet, and I never got into bulletin boards or anything. That was kind of just a little bit before my time. It's another thing I would just download. Obviously, I got Visual Basic from that. Photoshop was another big one that a lot of people would do. I got into art from that too, but definitely wasn't going to be able to have the two, three, four. I don't remember how much $100 that any of that stuff was going to cost when I was that age. I do remember when I went to college, and once they had the student like software pricing, I was super excited to be able to finally buy Visual Basic, but then it was .NET, and I installed it. I don't know if I ever actually used it. For the most part, I think the last Visual Basic I really used was 6.0. Yeah, and I mean, the servers and the mass mailers and stuff like that was an awesome way to be able to get some of that stuff, and I never would have been able to learn any of the programming or any of that kind of stuff if that wasn't the accessibility of it. Just you really weren't going to be able to pick that up when you're 12 or 13 years old just because of the cost inhibitant.
Yeah, that's really interesting that, yeah, it was behind the cost and stuff. So most kids wouldn't get to do it, but then of course they wanted it.
Yeah, and I went to a very small high school. I mean, I ended up, by the time I made it to high school, I knew more about programming and graphic design than any of my teachers did. I ended up, I don't remember what the programming class was, but it was something extremely outdated. But I ended up being able to do kind of a solo work on what I wanted to, just because I was so far ahead of everybody else, which again, that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for AOL.
From the pre-show notes, I show here you were involved with like AOL files and FDO files. Can you tell me about that?
I don't remember too much with that. I mean, I was close with Tao and BMB, and then Tao and BMB, and the guy that, or I don't know if he took it over. He just running some of the stuff, but Dime was really close with him. And I can't remember how things, if there was a forum attached to it at one point, or if it was just all the daily, weekly, monthly postings. But yeah, that was a very frequent conversation piece and website that just so much good information on there. And I think this now, and I remember thinking this back then, that somebody from AOL would just also be looking at this website that would allow them to fix some of this stuff. But it never really seemed like they were taking the easy step of just going and kind of hiding in as part of the community too. I'm sure there was, but again, in today versus today's state of security, it oftentimes took them a lot longer than I feel like it should have to fix some of that stuff.
Looking at it now, I think it's like how much did it actually affect their bottom line, right? Uh, right. So maybe that's why they weren't as proactive.
Yeah, and the episode you had when you had all the old employees on there was just really pretty interesting to hear their perspective on how that kind of cat and mouse game was on their side. Again, for the most part, I mean, there was credit card fraud, in a lot of those situations, but other than that, there wasn't that much damage being done.
Yeah, I mean, people's accounts might get taken over, but then they just get them back. So did you get involved with any like password stealers?
Yeah, I don't remember specifics. I mean, there were a couple that I just used initially. I wrote a handful of them too. I mean, at one point in time, I probably had half of the people in my high school's AOL passwords or AIM passwords. Started out as a buddy wanted his girlfriend's password. I don't remember the reason why. I just ended up designing it like a game. I put it on a disk, and he put it on her computer, and then like a couple hours later, I had her password, and I sent it over to him. Then it ended up turning into, I'd send him out. People would ask me for help with their computer, and they'd get something that would help them, but then they'd also get a password stealer along with it. And never really did much with those accounts, more than just kind of bragging. Not like any of the accounts that I would use for logging in and thinking that we were being safe by logging into somebody's account from out of state, not realizing that the phone number would tag them right back to us. Yeah, the friends' passwords that I got, I just kind of rubbed it in their face that I was able to get their password pretty easily. That was most of the password stealing. A lot of the accounts that I had that weren't uh, somebody I knew was more from cracking.
Wait, so how'd the password stealer work? You said it was a game?
So there were a couple different ways I did it. One, I just kind of disguised it as like a different Minesweeper game. And just once they opened it up, then it was going to be running in the background. Even if they thought they closed it, it was still just running. I did just regular keyloggers, but then as I started learning Windows API a little bit more, was able to kind of zone in on the login screen, because when it was a keylogger, just get way too much information, because it would just send me everything. But yeah, once API came in, it made it a lot easier to zone in on what you were looking for.
So would you just like get the window handle and then keylog on that, or?
Yeah, yeah, it did. Kind of the extension of that after, and some of this was as AOL was there was less and less newness to it. Then Sub 7 started getting big, and started binding Sub 7 to that too, because then I could just log into people's computers remotely and have a whole different level of fun there.
So you created the programs, put on people's computers, got their passwords. Did you do anything else?
I never really got into spamming, like a lot of people did. Just seemed like more of a hassle. But some of the pay-per-click affiliate programming, wrote up an app that basically just would change proxies, refresh the website. I think it was just like the Windows API for the mouse cursor to click on the button, and you'd get your 1 penny. Change proxies, do it again, have that run all night or all day. Only ever got maybe a couple $100 out of it, but that was about the only affiliate stuff I did. I kind of used that same program though. I had a friend that was in some like online beauty contest that was kind of a click for votes type of a thing, and this is back in like 2002. Like it's a lot different. There's still those dumb poll things out there, but all I had to do was just run that overnight. She won by a landslide. There were like 100 or so people in this thing, and I think she won like 5 grand and a trip, and I didn't get anything.
Wait, did she know that you were?
Yeah, she's like, could you get me some extra votes? And I think I ran it for like maybe one night or a day, and I mean, it was like she had like 5,000 votes, and the next person had like 175. Like it was a complete landslide.
Did you get a date or anything?
No, I was actually, it was just a friend of mine. I was dating somebody else, so it wasn't even for anything like that. I already had the app that I was using for the affiliate marketing, so I literally just kind of switched it over to that link, and it was a piece of cake.
So that was on like the general internet.
Yeah, yeah, that had nothing to do with AOL. It was just some website or group that she had gotten involved in somehow.
Okay, so it sounds like you kind of shifted from AOL to writing stuff, interacting with the general internet.
Yeah. Once I started getting closer to college, then well, AOL was just becoming different in general. Plus, we didn't have the need for dial-up anymore, so I really wasn't on the main AOL client very often, except for if I was trying to screw around with some of this. And a lot of people were switching over to IRC, and so kind of made that switch and got more into messing around with cross-site scripting and SQL injection, things like that. I love the MIRC client. Just the whole scripting basis of that program was really cool as to what you could do. That was again just kind of built into that application, and so I used that mostly, probably starting about 2003-ish.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the cross-site scripting and the SQL injection? Like, what were you attacking?
Nothing really specifically, because a lot of it was just kind of in the learning phases. So I never did anything that could have really got me in crazy trouble. But also, like, the low hanging fruit, so to say, was going to be the smaller little websites that didn't update their stuff, didn't have a security team, trying to make sure that their websites were, didn't have these vulnerabilities to them. I don't remember anything really specific, but it wasn't for any real purpose other than fun. I was also a lot smarter at that by that point in time, of not just directing in, had proxies, and again, probably not necessarily as safe as I should have been, but I was not just going direct like how I was with AOL.
Nice. Yeah, not a lot of people realized they needed to go through proxies back then. So kudos to you.
Again, looking back on it, it's like, God, that was pretty dumb.
Yeah, right. So did you ever mess around with FDO at all?
We did. I I don't remember any of it. There was one thing we were working on, kind of in combination with that Net Connect uh, ability to bypass secure ID. We were working on trying to build a password stealer essentially into the welcome screen, and we could get it to somehow work locally on our computer, and we were just trying to get into an internal that we could actually publish it. Never got into it. We always thought we were only just a day or two away from being able to to get that right account that we could do that, and we never did. But it was essentially going to be that, once somebody logged in, you know welcome, you've got mail, and then it popped up asking for you to reset your password. We were going to have that built into the welcome screen, and again, never was successful with doing it other than on our own computers. I mean, we played around with, the tokens and stuff like that too, but that was probably the most involved we got into with FDO.
That's really cool. What a concept.
Again, didn't come to full fruition, but it was fun screwing around with that for sure.
What else do you remember from back then?
Honestly, just a lot of fun. I mean, I had two completely different lives. Like, I was an extremely social person in school, sports, things like that. But once that was over and go home, then it was kind of a, till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, had this whole completely different persona and group of friends and different topics. And again, everybody was, for the most part, just really cool. Again, learned a ton. Wouldn't be where I'm at right now. Again, I kind of attribute that certainly to being as techy as I am. I mean, even before that, I was interested in a lot of stuff, but it wasn't so much with computers as it ended up turning into. I ended up initially going into college with a computer programming degree, but just the timing of everything, right after kind of the dot com burst, an advisor asked, like, you sure you want to do this? There's a lot of people that are out of work and looking for jobs with this same degree. If you have anything else that you might want to do, you may want to reconsider. And so I switched over to audiology, but I'm still in tech, just healthcare tech, and not as much computers.
Interesting. That's great. How did AOL impact your life overall, you think?
Ultimately, uh, again, I kind of say the same thing. That techie side of things, and it's helped me help a lot of people. I've always been, because of that, what I was just saying. I've always been that person that just about every friend, family member, teacher, coworker goes to for the, hey, I've got a computer program or problem. Can you help me with this? Which is great sometimes, can make you feel good, but it can also be rather annoying when it's like you didn't even try to troubleshoot this yourself. You just immediately came to me. But yeah, that certainly has probably been some of the biggest things. And but yeah, nothing but positive on my account. I was lucky. I never gotten any trouble, official big trouble at least, with anything. So there's nothing that I kind of have to have as a, oh, I should have done something different.
Nice. Is there anything else you want to share today?
I don't think so. I mean, biggest thing. Thank you for doing this. I've enjoyed every episode, and again, it's pulled some great memories out.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks for coming on the show.
All right, thank you.
Hack the planet. Hack the planet.
Welcome to cyberspace.